There's a quiet truth about life that most of us try to ignore, no matter how carefully we plan. Uncertainty is always lurking just around the corner. The job we rely on, the relationships we cherish, even our own health, none of these are guaranteed. But what if I told you there's an ancient practice that doesn't just help you face these uncertainties, but actually turns them into a source of strength? 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." That's the essence of negative visualization, a practice that doesn't dwell on fear but disarm it. In this video, we'll explore 26 powerful Stoic techniques grouped into practical themes that will teach you how to stare down life's unpredictability and come out stronger. This isn't about pessimism, it's about preparation. By the end, you'll see adversity not as a threat, but as a teacher waiting to reveal your resilience. What if you could face your fears before they happen, not to dwell on them, but to disarm their power over you? That's exactly what the Stoics did through Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Far from being morbid, this practice was their secret weapon against life's unpredictability. Think of it like mental fire drills. By rehearsing challenges in advance, they stripped away the shock and panic when those challenges actually arrived. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He wasn't just tolerating obstacles, he was transforming them into fuel for growth. Take something as unsettling as job loss. Most of us avoid even considering it, but the Stoics would lean into that discomfort. They'd ask, what's the worst that could happen? How would I adapt? What strengths could I rely on? By playing out the scenario mentally, they'd uncover hidden resources, maybe skills they'd neglected or frugal habits they could revive. The fear of losing a job doesn't disappear, but its grip weakens when you've already walked through the steps of recovery in your mind. So here's a challenge for you. Pick one fear you usually avoid, whether it's a health scare, a strained relationship, or a financial setback. Instead of pushing it away, sit with it for a moment. Ask yourself, if this happened, what would my first move be? That shift from dread to problem solving is where resilience begins. Everything you hold dear, your morning coffee, the sound of a loved one's laugh, even the comfort of your daily routine will one day be gone. That's not pessimism, it's the simple truth of existence. The Stoics called this Memento Mori, remembering that life is fleeting, not to paralyze us with fear, but to sharpen our appreciation for the present moment. Epictetus put it bluntly: some things are within our control and some are not. The breath in your lungs, the choices you make today, those are yours. Everything else borrowed time. Here's how to turn this realization into a daily ritual. When you wake up, before reaching for your phone or rushing into the day, pause. Picture something mundane, your favorite mug, the sunlight through your window, as if it's the last time you'll experience it. The bitterness of coffee, the warmth of the cup in your hands. Suddenly, these ordinary details become extraordinary. The Stoics weren't asking you to dwell on loss, they were teaching you to see what's already here. Try this. Grab a notebook and list 3 things you'd miss if they vanished tomorrow. Then ask, why do these matter? Maybe that playlist you listen to on your commute connects you to a younger, braver version of yourself. Perhaps your worn-out sneakers hold memories of walks that cleared your mind. When we name what we cherish, we stop taking it for granted. Impermanence isn't a threat, it's the quiet teacher that shows us how to live fully while we can. The Stoics had a radical approach to fear. They didn't just brace for the worst, they practiced it. Picture an athlete running drills before the big game. That's exactly what philosophers like Seneca did with life's uncertainties. In his letters, he described losing his wealth, his status, even his freedom, not as paranoia but as preparation. By mentally walking through these scenarios, he discovered something profound. The monster under the bed shrinks when you turn on the light. Let's break this down with something many of us dread: public speaking. Your palms sweat, your voice shakes. What if you blank out in front of everyone? Instead of avoiding that thought, the Stoic method invites you to lean into it. Ask yourself, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Maybe you stumble over your words. Maybe the room falls silent. Now go deeper. Would it truly destroy you? Chances are you'd survive. You might even laugh about it later. That's the irony. When you dissect your fears, they often reveal their own absurdity. Here's your challenge today. Take a current worry, a difficult conversation you're avoiding, a project that feels overwhelming, and script the full worst-case scenario. Write it down like a play, complete with every cringe-worthy detail. Then ask, could I recover from this? You'll almost always find a path forward hiding in the margins. Seneca didn't rehearse poverty to wallow in despair. He did it to prove to himself that even in exile, he'd still have his mind, his character, his ability to adapt. That's the real goal, not to predict suffering, but to prove you're unbreakable. Here's the next section. We've all had that moment, a near miss on the highway, a sudden illness or news of someone else's misfortune, that jolts us into realizing how much we take for granted. The Stoics didn't wait for those wake-up calls. They engineered them deliberately, pairing negative visualization with something far more uplifting: gratitude. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings with a simple reminder. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. That's the hidden alchemy of this practice. By mentally letting go of what we have, we rediscover its worth. Try this exercise. Close your eyes and picture your home: the clutter, the cracks in the walls, the worn-out couch. Now imagine it's gone, not just damaged but vanished. Where would you sleep tonight? Who would you call for help? Suddenly, that creaky floorboard or cramped kitchen doesn't seem so irritating, does it? The Stoics weren't asking you to live in fear of loss. They were showing you how to mine everyday life for buried gold. Grab a journal and answer this question: what would I grieve if it disappeared tomorrow? Don't just list possessions, dig deeper. Maybe it's the way your dog greets you at the door, or the fact that you can walk to the store without pain. When we name these things, we untangle gratitude from abstraction. It's no longer about generic counting blessings. It's about recognizing the fragile, fleeting threads that actually hold your world together. The goal isn't to mourn what you might lose, but to celebrate what you still have while you still have it. This practice works because it hijacks our brain's negativity bias. We're wired to notice what's missing: the empty fridge, the unanswered text. But by simulating loss, we trick our minds into spotting the abundance that was there all along. Seneca put it best: no man appreciates the value of his virtues while he still enjoys them. Take a cue from him, rehearse losing, and you'll stop overlooking what's already yours. This segment maintains the Stoic thread while introducing gratitude as an active practice, not passive appreciation. It avoids rehashing previous points about negative visualization by focusing on the contrast with gratitude, and grounds the exercise in tangible examples: home, health, for immediacy. The journal prompt serves as a concrete takeaway, fitting YouTube's actionable content style. Comfort is the enemy of growth, a truth the Stoics understood better than most. While modern life races to eliminate every inconvenience, philosophers like Musonius Rufus deliberately sought out discomfort. Cold baths, simple meals, rough clothing. These weren't acts of punishment, but training for the mind. He argued that pampering the body weakens the spirit, while enduring small hardships builds an unshakable resilience. Think of it like lifting weights for your willpower. You wouldn't expect to bench press 300 pounds without training, so why assume you'll handle life's heavier blows without practice? Epictetus took this further, calling hardships the gymnasium of the soul. To him, discomfort wasn't something to avoid, but the very material for self-mastery. When his lamp was stolen, he didn't rage at the thief. He thanked them for reminding him that light could still be found in darkness. That shift in perspective turns irritation into opportunity. You don't need ancient austerity to apply this. Start with something as simple as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or leaving your phone behind during a walk. These tiny acts rewire your relationship with unease, teaching your brain that discomfort isn't an emergency, just a signal to adapt. So ask yourself, what minor challenge can I invite into my day? Maybe it's a cold shower, a difficult conversation you've avoided, or skipping the snooze button. The goal isn't to suffer, but to prove to yourself that you're stronger than your cravings for comfort. Every time you choose the harder path voluntarily, you're stocking your inner arsenal for when life forces you onto it. The Roman philosopher Seneca spent years exiled to Corsica, a punishment that would break most people. Yet in his letters, he described this harsh period not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity to study philosophy undisturbed. He wrote, "No tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless many winds assail it." That's the heart of the Stoic meditation on impermanence. Every storm, whether literal or emotional, has an expiration date. This principle transforms how we face modern struggles. That soul-crushing job, the heartbreak that keeps you up at night, even the suffocating grip of burnout, they're all passing weather patterns in the grand climate of your life. Seneca loved nautical analogies. A ship's crew doesn't panic when clouds gather because they know the sky can't stay dark forever. Your darkest moments operate on the same cosmic timetable. Here's how to put this into practice. Think back to a hardship you once thought you'd never survive: a failed exam, a painful breakup, maybe a period of financial strain. At the time, it likely felt endless, but here you are, having outlasted it. The Stoics would ask, what did that struggle teach you about your own resilience? Perhaps you discovered hidden patience, or learned to ask for help, or realized how much less you actually need to be happy. Try this exercise next time stress feels permanent. Grab a pen and divide a page into 2 columns. On the left, write your current challenge. On the right, list every past difficulty you've already moved through. The proof is right there in ink. You've survived 100% of your unsurvivable moments. Marcus Aurelius kept a similar list in his journals, noting how even the empire's worst crises eventually became footnotes in history. This isn't about minimizing pain, it's about zooming out to see its temporary place in your story. When we obsess over present misery, it's like staring at a single frame of a movie and declaring the whole film bleak. The Stoics taught us to step back, to watch life's reel unfold with perspective. Your current chapter isn't the entire book. That project that failed, that rejection that stung, they're just sentences in a much longer narrative you're still writing. Some people don't just endure hardship, they use it as fuel to burn brighter. Take Cotto the Younger, who faced political defeat, exile, and even death with unshaken principle. When Julius Caesar offered him mercy, a gesture meant to humiliate, Cotto refused, choosing dignity over compromise. Or consider Cleans, who studied philosophy at night while hauling water to survive, proving resilience isn't about grand gestures but daily persistence. The Stoics didn't just admire such figures, they dissected their choices like blueprints for building an unbreakable mind. You don't need ancient heroes to apply this. Think of a person in your life or history who faced suffering with quiet strength. Maybe it's a grandparent who rebuilt after war, a colleague who thrives despite chronic illness, or even a fictional character whose resilience inspires you. The question isn't just what they endured, but how did they anchor themselves in purpose like Cotto? Did they find meaning in labor like Cleans? Traits like these aren't superhuman, they're choices we can reverse engineer. Try this exercise, pick one role model, living or historical, and write down 3 specific moments they demonstrated resilience. Then ask what Stoic principles were at work. Perhaps it was their focus on what they could control, their refusal to see themselves as victims, or their ability to find opportunity in loss. When we study resilience in action, it stops being an abstract idea and becomes a set of tools we can borrow. Marcus Aurelius filled his journals with tributes to mentors, not to idolize them, but to internalize their virtues. Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be, he wrote, be one. That's the real power of role models. They don't just inspire us, they give us permission to act. So who's your Cotto, your cleans? Identify them, study their playbook, and you'll find resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you can learn. Here's the next section of your script. Picture this. You're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. Your hands grip the wheel, your pulse races, but honking won't magically clear the road. Now imagine another scenario. Your coworker criticizes your idea in front of the team. Heat rises to your face, but their opinion isn't yours to dictate. These frustrations share a secret. They all live outside what Epictetus called the circle of control. His genius was slicing life into 2 categories: things we command, our judgments, efforts, and reactions, and things we don't, other people's actions, the weather, the past. The Stoics didn't just accept this divide, they weaponized it. Marcus Aurelius framed it perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Think of your mind as a fortress. The outer walls, those belong to chaos, delays, gossip, bad luck, but inside the citadel. That's your sovereign territory. No intruder gets in unless you lower the drawbridge. Traffic won't obey you, but your breath can stay steady. Critics will talk, but you choose whether their words become arrows or dust. Let's put this to work. Grab 2 sticky notes. On the first, write my domain. This is your circle of control. List what you truly govern, your effort tonight, the tone you use with your kids, whether you scroll mindlessly or read something nourishing. The second note, label it the world's noise. Here, dump the rest, your boss's mood, political headlines, whether your pasta sauce gets the perfect consistency. The magic happens when you see these lists side by side. Suddenly, the weight shifts. You're not responsible for fixing everything, just the things that answer to you. This isn't about shrugging off responsibility. It's about redirecting energy where it actually bends reality. The Stoics knew, master your inner citadel and no storm can breach it. So tonight, when a worry creeps in, ask it one question. Do I own this? If not, let the world keep it. Your fortress has better things to guard. This section keeps the momentum by opening with relatable scenarios, traffic, criticism to ground the abstract concept using vivid metaphors, fortress, citadel, to make the dichotomy memorable, providing an immediate action step, sticky note exercise for viewer engagement without being prescriptive, balancing authority, direct quotes with warmth. Your fortress has better things. Guard, avoiding cliches like let go in favor of fresher phrasing. Let the world keep it. Stoics don't panic, they prepare. That's the quiet power behind their most practical ritual, treating negative visualization like a mental chess match. Before disaster strikes, they've already played out the moves. Seneca didn't just worry about shipwrecks or betrayals, he drafted solutions in advance. His method was brutally simple. What if this happens, then what? 2 questions that transform fear from a fog into a flowchart. Take something as mundane as missing a flight. Most of us fume at the gate, drowning in frustration. But the Stoic traveler, they've already mapped the contingency plan. Rebook using the airline app, tap into lounge access for last-minute work, or even reframe the delay as unexpected downtime to finish that book. The crisis doesn't disappear, It just loses its fangs because they've rehearsed disarming it. Here's how to steal this tactic. Pick a stressor hanging over you right now, a presentation that might flop, a negotiation that could turn sour. Now script the exact worst-case scenario, but with a twist. At each step, insert a single action you'd take to pivot. For example, if my slides fail, I'll summarize key points conversationally. If the client resists, I'll ask which concerns matter most. This isn't pessimism, it's strategic rehearsal. By pre-solving problems, you drain their power to shock you. The brilliance of this practice, it exposes how many disasters secretly have trapdoors. Marcus Aurelius scribbled in his journals, "The obstacle is the way." He wasn't preaching platitudes, he was highlighting how obstacles often contain the tools to overcome them. That delayed flight forces you to rest. The blown presentation teaches improvisation. The Stoics didn't just endure chaos, they reverse-engineered it to find hidden levers. Your turn, grab a timer and spend 3 minutes on Seneca's drill with today's biggest what if. No vague fretting, just concrete, then I'll responses. You'll find what all great strategists know. Panic thrives in the unknown, but dissolves under the spotlight of preparation. The goal isn't to predict every storm, just to prove you're always holding an umbrella. Section 10 script. The average human lives about 4,000 weeks, a number that sounds vast until you realize you've already spent hundreds scrolling, worrying, or waiting for someday. The Stoics didn't shy from this math, they used it. Their most famous tool, Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die, but this wasn't about morbidity. Seneca, watching sand slip through an hourglass, wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." For Stoics, death wasn't a threat. It was the ultimate deadline that made every moment matter. Ancient philosophers kept literal skulls on their desks as wake-up calls to urgency. Today, your reminder could be a phone wallpaper with Seneca's quote, or a daily alarm labeled, "Is this how I want to spend my 4,000 weeks?" The point isn't to fixate on endings, it's to edit how you live between now and then. Imagine your future self looking back. What will you regret not doing? Who will you wish you'd thanked? Here's your challenge right now. Pick up your phone, not to check notifications, but to text someone you love with this message, "Thinking of you today." No caveats, no agenda, just a heartbeat of connection while you still can. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not for publication, but as private reminders to stop wasting your remaining time. That's the real power of Memento Mori. It turns procrastination into action. The next time you feel stuck in pettiness or paralysis, ask, "If this were my last year, would I let this consume me?" Not every problem shrinks under that light, but the trivial ones do. The Stoics didn't want you tallying days like a countdown. They wanted you spending them like currency. Because here's the secret Seneca knew. It's not death that cheats us of time, it's the illusion that we have endless tomorrows. Here's your next script section. Think about the last time you avoided something that made you uncomfortable. Maybe skipping a social event because you dreaded small talk, or putting off a medical checkup out of anxiety. Here's the paradox: what we run from grows taller in the dark. The Stoics understood this centuries ago, crafting a method so effective that modern therapists still use its principles today. They called it the fear exposure ladder, a step-by-step approach to scaling anxieties by facing them in controlled doses. Epictetus put it bluntly, "If you would not have a man flinch when the crisis comes, train him before it comes." Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the muscle built by repeated reps of leaning in. This isn't about reckless plunges into terror. Start small, microscopically small. Afraid of rejection? Begin by asking a barista to remake your coffee with one less pump of syrup. Nervous about public speaking? First, read your presentation aloud to an empty room. Each tiny act of confronting discomfort rewires your brain's threat response. proving that the monster isn't as deadly as your imagination painted it. The Stoics didn't charge at their fears like berserkers. They inched forward like engineers, dismantling panic bolt by bolt. Here's your challenge: build a 3-rung fear ladder this week. On the lowest step, write a fear so mild it almost feels silly, e.g., watching a suspenseful movie scene you usually skip. The middle rung, something that raises your pulse but feels manageable, sending a risky text to a friend. The top, your current barbarian at the gate, the fear that makes you sweat just thinking about it, requesting a raise. The key is progression. Don't vault to the top before strengthening your legs on the lower steps. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, seeking out critics to thicken his skin and cold baths to test his discipline. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, he wrote, because growth demands friction. Your ladder isn't a punishment, it's a personal training ground where you transform apprehension into agency. Every time you choose discomfort over avoidance, you're not just facing a fear, you're rewriting your relationship with fear itself. This section maintains momentum by opening with relatable avoidance behaviors, social events, medical check-ups to ground the concept, blending ancient wisdom, Epictetus with modern psychology, exposure therapy for credibility, providing actionable, scaled steps, coffee, request risky text, raise negotiation to avoid overwhelming viewers using vivid metaphors, barbarian gate, rewiring your brain's threat response to make the process tangible, closing with agency-focused language, rewriting your relationship with fear, to empower rather than intimidate. Section 12 script, picture Earth from space for a moment, a pale blue dot suspended in infinite darkness. Cities vanish into the landscape, borders disappear. From this vantage point, that sarcastic comment from your coworker, the traffic jam that ruined your morning, even the sting of rejection, they all shrink into cosmic insignificance. Marcus Aurelius called this the view from above, a mental exercise to pull ourselves out of our myopic frustrations and see our lives against the backdrop of the vast universe. He wrote in his journals, think of the vastness of time and how many billions share your brief moment in it. This isn't about dismissing your struggles, it's about putting them in their proper place. That colleague who takes credit for your ideas, in 100 years, no one will remember their name or yours. The promotion you missed, the universe won't tally it on some grand scoreboard. What will matter is how you chose to respond, with bitterness or with dignity. The Stoics didn't practice this perspective to become indifferent. They used it to focus on what truly deserved their energy. Here's how to make it practical. The next time you're simmering over something petty, a passive-aggressive text, a snub at a party, pause and perform this mental zoom out. Picture your street from a satellite's view, then your country, then the planet. Imagine the centuries rolling by before and after you. Suddenly, that slight feels as weightless as dust in a windstorm. For a tangible exercise, grab a blank sheet of paper and draw 3 concentric circles. Label the smallest one, today's drama, the middle one, this year's challenges, and the largest, my lifetime. Plot your frustration in the appropriate circle. You'll quickly notice most irritations belong in the smallest ring. As Marcus reminds us, the universe is change, life is opinion. The petty grievances we cling to are just that, opinions we can choose to release. The real power of this practice, it doesn't just shrink problems, it expands possibilities. When you stop sweating the small stuff, you free up mental space to ask bigger questions. What legacy do I actually want to leave? How can I make this fleeting moment meaningful? That's the Stoic secret, not apathy but clarity. The wider your lens, the clearer your purpose becomes. Your worst days are your best teachers if you're willing to take notes. Seneca, one of history's most prolific Stoic writers, ended each evening with a simple ritual. He'd replay the day's frustrations, the rude stranger, the missed opportunity, the moment his temper flared, and ask himself one piercing question: what did this reveal about me? He wasn't hunting for failures to punish, he was mining discomfort for wisdom. Those scribbled reflections became his personal curriculum for growth. Think of your lowest moments like a blacksmith's forge. The heat is unbearable in the moment, but it's also what shapes unbreakable steel. A Stoic doesn't just survive adversity, they document it. Not to dwell, but to distill. That argument with your partner, it exposed where your boundaries need reinforcing. The project that failed, it highlighted which assumptions were flawed. Even minor irritations are delayed train. A spilled coffee are tiny pop quizzes testing your ability to choose calm over chaos. Here's how to start your own resilience log. Grab any notebook and divide pages into 2 columns. On the left, describe a recent challenge, big or small. On the right, answer, what did this teach me about my strengths? My blind spots, for example, losing my temper at the meeting showed me I need more sleep to handle stress. Or, getting passed over for the promotion revealed how much I tie self-worth to titles. The goal isn't self-judgment, it's pattern recognition. Over time, you'll spot recurring lessons life keeps trying to teach you. Flip back to last month's toughest moment. Would you handle it differently now with today's clarity? That's the Stoic advantage. Hindsight becomes foresight. Marcus Aurelius filled 12 volumes of journals refining his responses to stress, and that practice turned him into one of history's most composed leaders. Your resilience log isn't just a diary, it's a blueprint for building the unshakable version of yourself. Every setback you dissect today becomes a strategy for tomorrow. Section 14 Script. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who famously declared, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger," borrowed a secret from the Stoics, amor fati, the love of fate. Not mere acceptance, but embracing life's twists as if you'd chosen them yourself. Picture a surfer riding a wave. They don't curse the water's movement, they use it. That's the radical shift in perspective Epictetus demanded when he said, "Don't seek events to happen as you wish them as they happen." Modern culture trains us to resist anything that disrupts our plans. The cancelled flight, the sudden job transfer, even the rain on a picnic day. But the Stoics recognized a deeper truth. Fighting reality burns energy we could spend adapting. Think of a tree bending in a storm. Its flexibility doesn't mean weakness. It's the very reason it survives winds that snap rigid branches. Here's the practice. Reflect on a past event you initially hated. A breakup, a rejection letter, maybe even a global pandemic. Now ask, what hidden gift did this bring? Maybe losing that job pushed you to start a business. Perhaps heartbreak taught you boundaries you'd ignored. The goal isn't to pretend suffering feels good, it's to recognize how often life's detours lead to better destinations than our original map. Try this tonight. Write down one current frustration, then brainstorm 3 ways it might serve you. Stuck in traffic, that's unexpected time to listen to a podcast. Missed a deadline, now you'll refine your time management. Nietzsche didn't just endure his chronic illness, he credited it for sharpening his philosophy. Amor fati turns life's plot twists into fuel for a story only you could tell. The Stoic secret: what looks like fate happening to you is really raw material waiting for you. The difference isn't in the event, it's in the hands that shape it. Section 15 Script. Luxury isn't just what we own, it's what we can't imagine living without. That's why Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, would periodically ditch his riches like a training weight. For days at a time, he'd wear scratchy clothes, eat stale bread, even sleep on the floor. He called these poverty weeks not self-punishment but stress tests for his resilience. His reasoning was razor sharp. It's not that we have little, but that we crave more, that makes us poor. Here's the unsettling truth: comfort breeds fragility. We clutch our conveniences so tightly that the mere thought of losing them sparks anxiety. But Musonius Rufus, the Stoic who taught Epictetus, warned that luxury softens the soul. He wasn't preaching austerity for moral points, he was offering a survival tactic. The tighter we cling to excess, the harder life shakes us when it inevitably takes something away. Try this modern twist on Seneca's drill, a 24-hour no-spend day. No takeout, no impulse buys, no digital distractions purchased to numb boredom. Just the essentials: food you already own, free entertainment like books or walks, real conversations instead of scrolling. You'll quickly notice two things. First, how many needs are really just reflexes, and second, how resourceful you become when options narrow. For a bolder challenge, delete one shopping app from your phone for a day. Not forever, just long enough to break the trance of instant gratification. That pause between I want and I buy is where Stoic discipline lives. Marcus Aurelius could have had silk sheets, but he chose a military cot, not because he disliked comfort, but because he refused to let it dictate his peace. The goal isn't to romanticize hardship, it's to prove to yourself that you're more adaptable than your lifestyle suggests. Next time you reach for your wallet, ask, is this exchange stealing my resilience? Sometimes the richest answer is walking away. Section 16 script, words are weapons, and the Stoics chose to sheath them. In an age buzzing with court intrigues and political backstabbing, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius practiced something revolutionary: silence as armor. He wrote, ask yourself, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? 3 questions that strip gossip of its power to wound. Here's why this matters. Negative visualization isn't just about preparing for external disasters, it's about disarming the ones we create with our own tongues. Imagine spreading a rumor about a coworker. Now flip the script. What if you were the subject of that whispered conversation? The knot in your stomach, the heat in your cheeks. That's the suffering gossip multiplies. The Stoics didn't avoid harsh truths. They refused to traffic in words that served no purpose but pain. Try this experiment for one day. Treat every sentence as if it were being recorded and played back to the person you're discussing. Before speaking, ask Marcus's triage questions. You'll notice 2 shifts. First, how much unnecessary chatter evaporates, and second, how much quieter and clearer your mind becomes. Gossip isn't just toxic to its target, it corrodes the speaker's integrity like acid on metal. The deeper lesson, social resilience, starts with linguistic discipline. When we refuse to pour fuel on drama, we're not just protecting others, we're immunizing ourselves against pettiness. Epictetus put it bluntly, if someone speaks ill of you, let your life be the response. Silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate power move. Your words can build or burn. Today, choose your bricks carefully. Here's your next section. Close your eyes for just a second and picture this. You're lying on what you know is your last day. The room is quiet, your breaths come slower now, and as you sift through decades of memories, what rises to the surface? I'll tell you what won't. That passive-aggressive comment from a coworker 3 years ago, or the weekend you wasted doom scrolling. The Stoics called this the deathbed test, a merciless but clarifying lens for life's decisions. Seneca drilled it into his students, as if you had already died, pass the balance of your life as a bonus. This isn't about morbidity, it's about liberation. That argument you're replaying in your head, the promotion you're obsessing over, from the vantage point of your final hours, they'll hold the weight of dust. Ancient philosophers didn't use this exercise to scare people, they used it to free them. Imagine standing at your own funeral. What stories would you hope people tell? Not about the size of your house or your job title, but how you made them feel. That's the legacy metric the Stoics measured by. Here's how to make it visceral. Grab a notebook and write a letter to your future dying self, not with regret but clarity. Start with, Here's what I want you to remember. List the moments worth carrying to the finish line. Maybe it's your sister's laugh after a terrible joke or the quiet pride of finally forgiving someone. Then flip the page and answer brutally, what am I currently prioritizing that won't even cross my mind here? The gap between those two lists is your compass. Modern culture screams at us to chase more likes, more stuff, more hustle. But the Stoics whisper a counterintuitive truth. The fewer things that cling to your soul when you're gone, the richer your life actually was. When you start evaluating choices through this filter, pettiness loses its grip. That neighbor's snub, irrelevant. The meeting that went sideways, forgotten. What remains is the only question that ever mattered. Did I live by what I valued? Tonight, try this. Light a candle and spend 10 minutes in deathbed reconnaissance. No grand revelations needed, just notice what surfaces when you strip away the noise. Marcus Aurelius put it best. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. The deadline of death isn't a threat. It's the ultimate editing tool for a meaningful life. This section opens with a vivid sensory prompt. Close your eyes. Quiet room to immerse viewers. Uses contrast dust vs. Legacy to highlight what endures. Provides a concrete, emotional exercise letter to dying self for immediate application. Avoids cliches about living fully. By focusing on editing trivial worries. Closes with a tactile ritual candle plus 10-minute reflection. To ground the philosophy, borrows Marcus's razor-sharp quote to tie ancient wisdom to modern urgency. The tone balances gravity. Warmth, rejecting escapism while offering liberation. Section 18 script. Notice how often the words "this isn't fair" or "why me" slip into your thoughts today. That mental static isn't just harmless venting, it's resistance crystallizing. Epictetus sliced through this illusion centuries ago. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things. When we complain, we're not describing reality, we're arguing with it. And as any Stoic will tell you, the universe never loses that debate. Here's the pivot: treat complaints like fire alarms. Their job isn't to wail endlessly, it's to alert you to something needing action. A leaky faucet, fix it or call the plumber. A rude email, draft a solution, not a rant. The moment you shift from "this shouldn't be happening" to "what can I do about it," you reclaim agency. Modern research backs this. Verbal venting often deepens frustration, while problem-solving rewires the brain toward calm. Try this today, the 24-hour no-complaint challenge. Rules are simple. Every time you catch yourself grumbling out loud or in your head, you have two choices. Option 1, drop it entirely. Option 2, convert it into one concrete step toward improvement. Traffic jam, use the time to call a loved one. Overwhelming workload. Block off 30 minutes to prioritize tasks. The magic happens in that split-second pivot from resistance to response. For accountability, wear a bracelet or rubber band on your wrist. Each unnoticed complaint means switching it to the other arm, a physical tally of mental discipline. By day's end, you'll spot patterns, certain people, places, or tasks that trigger reflexive negativity. That's gold. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle becomes the way. Your complaints aren't failures, they're signposts pointing exactly where your resilience needs strengthening. The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. They felt irritation, fear, disappointment, but they refused to let those feelings metastasize into powerless whining. Next time your lips part to protest, pause. Ask Epictetus's razor question: is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, accept. Either way, you've just upgraded from commentator to commander of your life. Section 19 script. That person who gets under your skin, the coworker who nitpicks your work, the relative who always has something negative to say. They're not just irritations. They're unwitting mentors. The Stoics had a radical way of reframing opposition. Your enemies reveal your weaknesses before life has to. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political scheming as emperor, wrote in his private journal, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But he took it further. He studied his antagonists like textbooks, mining their critiques for hidden lessons. Here's the uncomfortable truth: critics often hold up mirrors we'd rather avoid. The boss who calls your presentation disorganized, they might be highlighting a real blind spot in your preparation. The friend who needles you about always being late. That's a nudge toward accountability you've dodged. This isn't about accepting abuse, it's about separating the delivery from the data. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Try this exercise today. Pick one persistent critic in your life, not the trolls, but someone whose feedback stings precisely because it might contain a grain of truth. Now ask, what accidental gift did they hand me? Maybe their impatience revealed your tendency to over-explain, or their skepticism pushed you to bulletproof your ideas. The Stoics didn't just tolerate difficult people, they leveraged them. Every barbed comment is raw material for sharpening your character. For a tangible challenge, write down the harshest feedback you've received this year. Cross out the tone. The ego bruises what's left. Sometimes the words we resent most are the ones we needed to hear. As Seneca reminded his students, a gem cannot be polished without friction. Your critics aren't roadblocks, they're the whetstone grinding you sharper. Thank them not aloud, but in the quiet work of becoming unshakable. The next time someone's disapproval lands like a punch, pause. Breathe, then, with the cold precision of a scientist, dissect their words for usable fragments. That's the Stoic superpower, transforming poison into medicine. The world will always have critics. The resilient make them work for them, not against them. Here's the next segment of your script. Most gratitude practices stop at "I'm thankful for." But the Stoics took it further with a counterintuitive twist. What if you'd never had these blessings at all? Picture waking up tomorrow to discover your happiest memory never happened. The love you built, the career you shaped, even the mundane comforts you barely noticed. That jolt of imagined loss is the heart of reverse gratitude. A practice Seneca used to sharpen appreciation into something unshakable. He wrote, "We should project our minds ahead to all time and consider ourselves the heirs of the entire past." In other words, everything good in your life is borrowed treasure. Treat it accordingly. This isn't about dwelling on loss, it's about activating gratitude through contrast. Think of sunlight. You don't truly see it until shadows fall. Your morning coffee tastes richer when you remember the weeks you couldn't afford it. The sound of a loved one's voice becomes sweeter when you imagine never hearing it again. Negative visualization isn't morbid, it's the whetstone that sharpens joy to its keenest edge. Here's how to practice it today. Grab a notebook and title a page never had. List 3 things you cherish: your health, a friendship, even the device you're watching this on. Now, beside each, write, "What if this had never been mine?" Sit with that hollow feeling for just a breath. When you return to reality, you'll find those very same blessings glowing brighter, as if dusted off after years of neglect. For an advanced version, try this before bed. Mentally erase one blessing from your life as you fall asleep. Say, your ability to walk. Upon waking, before rising, savor the relief of discovering it's still yours. Epictetus trained his students this way. He who has once been happy will never be unhappy because he remembers his past happiness. But the Stoics added the crucial step: pretend it's already gone first. That's the alchemy. Grief rehearsed becomes gratitude deepened. Your daily life is already full of hidden ceremonies. The first sip of water when you're thirsty. A miracle you've forgotten to notice. The text from a friend checking in. A thread in a tapestry of connection you could have easily never woven. Reverse gratitude isn't another task on your self-improvement list, it's the lens that turns ordinary moments into sacred ones. Seneca's warning rings truer now than ever. You only lose what you cling to. Cling less, appreciate more. This segment opens with a striking contrast: standard gratitude vs. Reverse approach to hook interest uses vivid sensory examples, sunlight/shadow. Morning coffee to ground the abstract provides two actionable tiers, simple list plus advanced bedtime ritual for different commitment levels, quotes Epictetus and Seneca to tie the exercise to classical authority without sounding academic closes with a punchy paradox. Cling less, appreciate more. Shareable impact avoids cliché gratitude language by framing appreciation as an active discovery process. The tone balances intellectual depth. Whetstone that sharpens joy with warmth. Text from a friend checking in, making Stoicism feel both profound and practical. Section 21 script. Even in ancient Rome, a civilization without smartphones or social media, the Stoics recognized a universal truth: noise drowns wisdom. Seneca famously escaped the chaos of Rome for quiet retreats in the countryside, writing to his friend Lucilius, "You must step away to see clearly." He wasn't running from responsibility, he was creating space to strengthen it. Today, we call this the Stoic Sabbath, a deliberate pause from consumption and clutter, not as deprivation but as mental decluttering. Think of your mind like a snow globe. Constant motion keeps the flakes swirling, making it impossible to see the shape beneath. But let it settle for just an hour and clarity emerges. That's what Seneca's retreats achieved, stillness as a strategic tool. You don't need a villa in the woods to replicate this. Start with a half day. No screens, no shopping, no scrolling. Just the bare essentials: a notebook, your thoughts, maybe a walk without headphones. The goal isn't to abandon modern life, but to interrogate it. Here's the challenge this week: designate 4 hours as your Stoic Sabbath. Before it begins, ask yourself 2 questions. What mental clutter have I been avoiding? Unsent emails, unresolved tensions. And what physical clutter drains my focus? That overflowing drawer, the apps you never use. Use the quiet to address 1 item from each list. Not everything, just enough to prove that stillness isn't empty space but fertile ground. Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire, still carved out pre-dawn hours for journaling in silence. His secret: you own the moment you stop letting the world dictate your attention. A Sabbath isn't about retreating from life. It's about reclaiming your capacity to engage with it deeply. When you mute the static, you'll hear something startling: your own voice reminding you what actually matters. Try this today. Power down your devices an hour earlier than usual. Sit with the discomfort of not filling the silence. Notice what surfaces: boredom, ideas, long-buried questions. That friction is the sound of your mind recalibrating. As Seneca discovered, sometimes the most productive thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Section 22 script. Think about the last time you wished you could grab life's remote control and delete an embarrassing moment, a painful failure, or a regret that still stings. What if I told you the Stoics invented a mental version of that, not to erase the past but to reclaim it? They called this fate's editing room, where every setback isn't a mistake left on the cutting room floor, but a pivotal scene in your story's arc. Epictetus framed it bluntly: don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do. That's the Stoic final cut, not denial but deliberate meaning-making. Here's how it works. Take a past event you'd normally label a failure, maybe a botched job interview or a relationship that crumbled. Now, imagine you're the director reviewing the footage. Instead of fast-forwarding through the cringe, pause on it. Ask, what did this moment teach me about resilience, about my non-negotiables? That rejected job application might have steered you toward a path that fit your skills better. That heartbreak could have revealed patterns you needed to break. The edit isn't about changing the past, it's about changing how the past lives inside you. Try this exercise today. Grab a notebook and rewrite one regret as a necessary lesson. For example, I didn't fail that audition. I discovered the type of roles that truly light me up. Or, losing that client forced me to refine my pitch for bigger opportunities. The goal isn't toxic positivity, it's forensic reframing. Marcus Aurelius did this daily in his journals, mining his worst days for gold. The obstacle becomes the way. When you stop fighting the footage and start directing it, even your stumbles become part of the hero's journey. For a deeper challenge, pair this with negative visualization. What if this failure had never happened? You might realize how much strength or wisdom you'd lose without it. A sculptor doesn't complain about chiseling away marble. They know it's the only way to reveal the statue beneath. Your past isn't a blooper reel, it's the raw material of your unshakable self. The next time regret whispers, "I wish things were different," hit pause. Then ask the Stoic editor's question: how is this scene shaping what comes next? The final cut belongs to you. Not because you control every plot twist, but because you alone get to decide what the story means. Section 23 script. Imagine eavesdropping on your own funeral, not to hear who shows up, but to discover what lingers in the silence after the eulogies. The Stoics had a name for this mental exercise, the posthumous reputation test. It wasn't about craving praise or fearing criticism, but about measuring actions against an invisible yardstick. Would this choice hold up under the scrutiny of eternity? Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one. This practice cuts through modern culture's obsession with likes and followers. Fame is fleeting. What endures is the quiet imprint you leave on others. Think of a teacher who shaped your curiosity, a neighbor whose kindness still warms you years later. They weren't chasing applause, they were stacking invisible bricks of integrity. The Stoics didn't reject recognition, they just refused to let it drive them. As Epictetus quipped, if you wish to be praised, you must lower your value. Here's how to make it practical. Grab a sheet of paper and draft your ideal epitaph in 6 words or fewer. Not the grandiose version for show, the one that would make your chest swell with quiet pride. Maybe, "He listened more than he spoke," or "She made broken things feel whole." Now the piercing question: what would need to change today to earn those words? For a starker test, try Seneca's 3 people exercise. List one person who thinks highly of you, one who despises you, and one who's indifferent. Then ask, why does each opinion hold weight or not? The goal isn't to dismiss feedback, but to untangle your motives. Are you acting from virtue or vanity? The irony: those who chase legacy least often leave the deepest marks. A tree doesn't grow roots to impress the soil, it simply stands firm, and in time the earth remembers its shape. Live by that principle long enough, and your reputation becomes not a performance, but an echo of who you already were. Section 24 script. Fire drills train muscles to remember exits before smoke clouds judgment. Stoics trained their minds the same way. Seneca didn't wait for disaster to strike. He invited it into his imagination like a sparring partner. His letters reveal a startling habit: mentally rehearsing exile, poverty, even betrayal, not to dwell in dread, but to deprive those fears of their surprise attack. He wrote, "The man who has rehearsed his poverty is truly rich." That's the essence of the disaster rehearsal, immunizing your psyche against panic through preparation. Let's make this visceral. Picture waking up to a notification. Your bank account's been drained by hackers. Your stomach drops. Now pause, rewind. What if you'd already scripted this scenario? You'd know exactly which fraud hotline to call, which emergency fund to tap, even how to leverage skills for side income while resolving it. The crisis hasn't changed, but your cortisol response has. That's the difference between reacting and responding. Here's your assignment. Pick 3 unlikely but plausible disasters, ones that feel unsettling to consider but aren't apocalyptic. Maybe it's your car breaking down mid-road trip, a sudden layoff, or a social media scandal. For each, draft a 2-step contingency plan. 1. Immediate action. The first 60 minutes, e.g., roadside assistance number saved in your phone, a 3-month expense buffer in a separate account. 2. Rebound strategy. The next 60 days, e.g., freelancing contacts ready, a public apology template for reputation repair. Modern psychology validates this. Navy SEAL use stress inoculation, training to simulate combat chaos until their nerves stop flinching. You're not preparing because disaster is likely. You're preparing so if it comes, you'll meet it with the calm of someone who's already been there. Seneca's genius was recognizing that rehearsal doesn't just soothe anxiety, it reveals hidden resources. While mentally walking through his own exile, he realized books and philosophy couldn't be confiscated. Your version might reveal that a job loss would finally push you to monetize a hobby, or that a flooded basement would teach you which possessions actually matter. The goal isn't to control the uncontrollable, it's to prove to yourself that you're always holding more cards than fear lets you see. Tonight, spend 15 minutes scripting just one disaster movie where you're the unshakable protagonist. Not the flawless hero, the adaptable one, because resilience isn't about avoiding the storm, it's about knowing you've already built the shelter. Section 25 Script. Stoics smiled in storms, literally. When Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, lost everything in a shipwreck, he reportedly laughed and declared, "Fortune commands me to be a philosopher." No theatrical crying, no victimhood, just dry amusement at life's plot twists. This wasn't denial, it was a radical reframe. Suffering to the Stoics wasn't just something to endure, it was the whetstone that sharpened wisdom, if you knew how to hold it right. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled by a cruel master, put it bluntly, "Suffering tests the metal of your soul." He didn't mean pain was good, only that it was useful. Like a blacksmith's forge, the heat feels unbearable in the moment, but without it, the blade stays soft. Your toughest struggles, the job rejection, the illness, the betrayal aren't random punishments. They're pop quizzes on resilience, each one whispering the same question. How will you use this to grow? Here's the practice. Think of a current hardship, maybe a strained relationship, financial stress, or even chronic pain. Now channel your inner Zeno and ask, what's the hidden curriculum here? A breakup might be teaching you self-worth. A financial rut could reveal how little you actually need to be happy. Even physical pain, as Marcus Aurelius noted, is either bearable or intolerable. If bearable, endure it. If intolerable, it will end you anyway. The Stoic smile isn't about faking happiness, it's about recognizing adversity as life's sternest but fairest teacher. For a tangible exercise, try this tonight. Write down your biggest struggle, then brainstorm 3 ways it's secretly serving you. No toxic positivity, just cold, honest reframing. That frustrating coworker, they're training your patience. The project that failed, it's revealing where your skills need polishing. Even grief, in its brutal way, measures the depth of what you love. The Stoics knew something modern science now confirms. Humans don't find meaning in spite of suffering, they find it through suffering. Your lowest moments aren't interruptions to your story, they're the crucibles where your character gets remade. Next time life hands you a storm, ask Zeno's question. What's this forcing me to discover? The answer might not make you laugh out loud, but it could leave you smirking just a little. Here's your final script section. Long after we're gone, the echoes of how we faced life's storms remain. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't just build resilience for themselves, they forged tools meant to outlast them. Marcus Aurelius, who scribbled his private journals never intending them to be read, left behind a compass for generations. Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. That's the challenge we're embracing now, not just to endure, but to distill our hard-won lessons into something that outlives us. Imagine uncovering a letter from your great-grandparent, yellowed with age, detailing how they weathered wars, heartbreaks, or failures you never knew they faced. What would those words be worth to you? That's the power of the legacy of Resilience letter, a practice that turns your struggles into a lighthouse for someone else's darkness. The Stoics didn't write for fame, they wrote to fortify the future. Here's how to begin. Grab paper and pen, yes, physically. This isn't a text to be deleted. Address it to someone you'll never meet, a grandchild, a stranger, or even your own future self. Now, answer just one question. What did adversity teach me that I'd want others to inherit? Maybe it's that grief carved your capacity for joy deeper, or that rejection steered you toward truer paths. Don't lecture, share like a fellow traveler passing a map. Seneca did this in his letters to Lucilius, mixing raw honesty with unshakable hope. Difficulty shows what men are. For a Stoic twist, include not just victories, but the usefulness of your stumbles. Describe the panic attack that taught you breathe control, the betrayal that revealed your inner circle's true strength, or the failure that became a pivot point. Marcus's journals overflowed with such admissions. The obstacle is the way wasn't a slogan to him. It was autopsy notes on his own growth. Seal the letter. Store it where you'll rediscover it years later, or better yet, give it to someone facing their own storm today. Because resilience isn't a solo act, it's a chain linking past, present, and future. Your words might be the handhold that keeps someone else from falling. As Epictetus, born into slavery, reminded us, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Time for your struggles to ripen into wisdom. Time for your letter to become someone else's lifeline. This isn't an ending, it's a baton pass. The Stoics' new immortality isn't about living forever. It's about what you plant that keeps growing without you. So write like tomorrow depends on it, because for someone, someday, it just might. This closer opens with a time-spanning image, echoes of resilience to emphasize legacy, uses tactile, emotional prompts, yellowed letters. Physical writing to deepen impact provides clear, actionable steps while leaving room for personalization. Quotes Marcus and Seneca to anchor the exercise in classical wisdom, ends with forward momentum, baton pass, metaphor instead. Static conclusion balances gravitas, lighthouse for someone else's darkness with warmth. Write like tomorrow depends on it. The tone remains authoritative yet intimate, a fitting finale that viewers could imagine returning to years later, like Marcus's own rediscovered journals. Here's your conclusion script designed to tie everything together while keeping it fresh and actionable. After 26 practices, here's what becomes undeniably clear. Stoicism doesn't just arm you against life's storms, it teaches you to dance in the rain. Every exercise we've explored, from mentally rehearsing loss to reframing critics as mentors, shares a common thread. They transform fear from a stumbling block into stepping stones. Negative visualization was never about expecting the worst. It was about discovering the best in yourself when tested. Consider the paradox at the heart of Stoic wisdom. By willingly facing what scares us, we drain its power to shock or control us. Those who seem unshakable in crisis aren't immune to fear. They've simply practiced meeting it on their own terms. Seneca, who turned exile into a writing retreat and betrayal into a lesson on trust, captured this alchemy perfectly. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Your journey starts with a single step. Maybe today it's writing a reverse gratitude list to sharpen appreciation, or scripting a worst-case scenario to expose hidden solutions. Perhaps it's as simple as deleting one shopping app to test your adaptability. The practice doesn't matter as much as the decision to begin. So here's your challenge straight from the Stoics playbook. Don't just watch this video and move on. Pick one technique right now and put it to work before sunset. Text that person you've been meaning to thank. Take the cold shower. Write the resilience letter. Every master was once a beginner, and every oak was once an acorn that refused to stay buried, because the obstacle isn't just in your way, it is the way. Your path forward starts the moment you choose to see it that way. Why this works opens with a vivid metaphor dancing in the rain to recap the core theme, engagingly clarifies the Stoic paradox, fear as fuel without rehashing previous points, uses Seneca's quote to anchor the conclusion in classical authority, provides varied action options, gratitude list, cold shower, letter to suit different viewers, ends with a memorable twist on the icon. Stoic phrase, making it feel fresh, maintains warmth. Every oak was once an acorn. While staying authoritative, the tone balances urgency. Before sunset with encouragement, the moment you choose, leaving viewers empowered rather than overwhelmed. No rhetorical questions, no repetitive structures, just a clear, compelling close.